I remember the exact moment it all snapped. Not a scream, not a slammed door, just a sentence sharp as winter glass. Alex looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't deserve respect. You came too late to matter." That was it. That's what killed it. Not a fight, not fists or fury, just one calm, clear line that turned 11 years into ash. I didn't yell, didn't flinch, just walked out of the room, pulled up my laptop, and shut down the family fund like I was closing a debt account. Later that night, I emailed Hannah a spreadsheet titled "Time's Up." Every expense since I'd entered their lives. Food, rent, braces, insurance, tuition. A receipt for every moment I kept this family afloat while being treated like scaffolding, useful, invisible, temporary. The next morning, I called a moving truck. I didn't leave a note, just a house no longer paid for, and silence where a father used to stand. That wasn't just the end of a scene. That was the curtain call on the whole damn show. I met Hannah when I was 35. She was 33, already worn down from the storm of divorce and the strain of parenting 2 kids alone. Alex was 10. Sophie was 7. And me? I was a man who still believed effort could fix anything. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue. I was standing by the grill flipping burgers. She was behind me, trying to open a bottle of wine with a bent corkscrew. I showed her a trick with a shoe and a wall. We laughed. That was our beginning. Something small, something hopeful. She told me early on that she wasn't looking for a savior. I believed her. I didn't see it as saving. I saw it as building. Starting over. She had been through hell with Trevor, her ex. The stories she told me were quiet but bitter. Late nights waiting on child support that never came. Birthdays missed. Promises broken like clockwork. When I met Trevor at Sophie's school recital, he gave me a smile like we were brothers at a bar, both chasing the same game. I shook his hand and hated him instantly. Not because he was charming. Not because he had history with her. But because he looked right through his kids like they were paperwork he had already filed. He showed up for optics. For the photos. For the 5 minutes that made him look like he was still part of the story. But he was never there for the mess. The grind. The real. That was me. I worked warehouse logistics just outside Seattle. It wasn't glamorous. Just long shifts, steel-toed boots, bad coffee, and forklifts that never got serviced on time. But it was steady, and it let me show up. After a year and a half of dating, I proposed to Hannah. We were married by the following spring. She couldn't buy a house, her credit was wrecked, thanks to a joint loan with Trevor that he defaulted on. So I bought us a home. The mortgage went in my name, but I said it every chance I got. This is our house, our family, our start. It was a 3-bedroom in a quiet cul-de-sac. Big backyard, a swing set I built with my own hands, even though Sophie barely used it after the first summer. I planted 2 trees, one for each kid. I thought they'd grow roots here. I thought we all would. At first, things felt almost normal. Sophie warmed up quicker. She was young, eager to be loved. But Alex, his trust was sandpaper. Every kindness I offered came back rough. He didn't fight me outright. He didn't scream, "You're not my dad." Not then. He just didn't let me in. At soccer games, I cheered. At parent-teacher conferences, I showed up in the seat Trevor left empty. I bought him a bike, then taught him how to ride it. He crashed hard once, scraped his knees bloody. I carried him inside, patched him up, held him till he stopped crying. The next day, Trevor dropped by with a brand new BMX. Twice the size, triple the cost. Alex didn't ride it. He just stood next to it in the driveway, grinning. Said, "My real dad knows what I like." That was the first crack. I just didn't see it for what it was. 11 years. That's how long I tried to be enough. Through school dances, cavities, teenage tantrums, and slammed doors. I showed up. That's the thing people don't talk about. Love isn't just loud declarations or birthday surprises. Love is presence. Love is standing there when everyone else walks away. I paid the bills. I paid attention. I learned how Alex liked his eggs and how Sophie cried when she was overtired. I picked up extra shifts when Hannah needed dental work. I drained my savings twice, Once for Sophie's braces, once for Alex's college prep. But no matter how much I gave, it always came with a limit. An invisible line. I wasn't blood. I wasn't Trevor. I wasn't Dad. At school functions, the forms still said, stepfather. At holidays, they waited for Trevor to call. And when he didn't, it was always my fault for not reminding him. For not making it easier. For not playing nice with the ghost who got credit for nothing but showing up twice a year with sneakers and a smile. Sophie started pulling away around 14. Boys, makeup, late-night texts. She told me less and less. Then nothing at all. Alex, he got sharper, smarter. Sarcasm became his armor. Every favor I offered was a transaction in his eyes. Every rule I set was overstepping. I remember the time I asked him to mow the lawn. He looked at me and said, "My dad doesn't make me do chores." I almost laughed. What dad? The one who sent gift cards once a year. Hannah would step in sometimes. Half-heartedly. "Alex, don't be rude." But the correction was always soft, like she was afraid to push too hard. Afraid to make them choose. And that's the truth, isn't it? She never wanted them to choose. She wanted a man who would carry the weight without complaint, without question, without title. I was that man. Until I wasn't. There's a kind of erosion that happens in families like this. Not loud. Not sudden. Just slow weathering. A thankless dinner here. A dismissed effort there. You go from being Dad in private to Michael in public. You go from, "Can you help me?" to "Mom said you have to." You start to feel it in the small things. How Alex would only ask for money when Hannah was in the room. How Sophie would roll her eyes if I gave advice about anything. How Trevor became this mythic figure, charming, generous, fun, while I was the man who paid the electric bill and got the eye rolls. Every family photo had him hiding behind it. The absence that filled the room louder than my presence. Still, I endured, because I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought effort would win them over. I thought one day they'd see it. One day they'd look back and say, "He was there. He stood in the fire. He didn't leave." But that day never came. Instead, it came to this. 11 years. $500,000. Sleepless nights. A house I paid for, a life I built. All reduced to one sentence. You don't deserve respect. You came too late to matter. And just like that, I stopped trying to matter at all. Every gift I ever gave them became a debt. They didn't know it. Not at first. Not when I handed them new shoes before school started. Not when I paid for Sophie's dance classes, her costumes, the driving lessons, the gas cards. Not when Alex's laptop died senior year and I drove through a snowstorm to get him a replacement so he wouldn't fail his midterms. They saw those things as air, as entitlement, as the background hum of a life too padded to notice the scaffolding underneath. But it was always a debt, because the more I gave, the more I hoped. And hope is the cruelest currency. You spend it like it'll come back. It never does. By the time Alex turned 21, I was no longer even a second thought in the house I bought. He lived rent-free in the guest room, door always closed, blackout curtains drawn at noon. He slept during the day, gamed through the night, and treated every request like an insult. Sophie wasn't much different. She spent her nights out. Bars, boys, late returns with smeared eyeliner and the same lies. We were just at a friend's house. Her days? A blur of silence. Her presence felt only in the trail of dishes and laundry she left behind. And still I paid. Because someone had to. The roof, the groceries, the heating bill when they left windows open in December, the car insurance, the dental plans, Sophie's therapy even though she never said thank you, Alex's last community college semester, even though he failed 2 of the 4 classes. I was still working full-time at the warehouse, nights on my feet, mornings with my knees screaming, overtime whenever it was offered. I drag myself home, peel off steel-toe boots, and hear the laughter through the floorboards. The sound of children who didn't worry about bills, because they knew someone else always would. They never said it, but I could feel it. He's not our dad. He's just the guy who pays. One night, I asked Alex for a small thing. $200. Rent, I said. Just to help with groceries, I said. a fraction of what he spent on takeout and new games every month. He looked up from his phone and scoffed. Mom doesn't charge us. Why would you? That sentence, it didn't sting. Cut. Deep. Clean. Like a scalpel. Because in those 10 words, he summed up 11 years of how they'd always seen me. A wallet with legs. A filler until their real dad decided to drop by. And then came the sentence. The one that changed it all. The one I'd never forget. You don't deserve respect. You came too late to matter. He said it with no heat, no rage, just certainty. A final stamp. The closing argument. I said nothing. I walked upstairs, closed the door to my office, sat in the same chair I'd used to build budgets, research scholarships, find dentists, negotiate with landlords, draft up family trips that no one ever thanked me for. I opened a spreadsheet, titled it in all caps, What It Cost to Be Nobody. I did the math. $1,200 a month for the mortgage, $500 utilities, $800 groceries, $400 school-related expenses, another $900 here and there, gifts, repairs, gas, sports, Sophie's therapy, Alex's tech. It averaged out to $3,800 a month. Every month. For 11 years. $501,600. That was the price of being invisible. I stared at the total for a long time. Not in anger. Not even grief. Just awe. Like I just read my own obituary written in numbers. Then I opened another tab and shut it all down. Bank transfers. Autopays. Preloaded debit cards. Everything. Cut the wires. Closed the tap. I didn't tell them. Not yet. I let the silence stretch, long and dangerous. Alex came home the next day with a new monitor. Sophie brought back sushi and 3 bags from Target. They didn't notice anything. But I did. I wasn't angry. That's what they never understood. I wasn't some scorned father figure looking for an apology. I wasn't waiting for a thank you. That would never come. I was just done. Done paying to be irrelevant. Done financing my own erasure. 2 weeks passed. That's how long it took for them to notice the missing money. Alex came storming down one afternoon, waving his phone like it had betrayed him. My rent payment bounced. Did you cancel the transfer? I didn't look up from my coffee. Yes. He blinked, as if the idea itself was offensive. Why? Because I'm not your father. Remember? His face turned pale. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You don't owe me respect because I came too late. So now I owe you nothing. We're even. He opened his mouth again, but the words didn't come. He turned and stormed out. Sophie was subtler. I heard her on the phone later that night, whispering. To Trevor, I assumed. Asking for help. I doubt he answered. I doubt he even listened. He hadn't been around in over 6 months. Typical Trevor. Always too busy to parent but never too busy to post a selfie from Cancun with the caption. #BlessedDadTime. I watched them unravel slowly, day by day. The lights went out in the basement, unpaid bill. The fridge got emptier. Sophie started showing up to work shifts she used to skip. Alex borrowed money from friends, tried to sell a few electronics. They blamed everyone but themselves. I didn't lecture, didn't gloat. I just existed, quiet and still, like a storm they couldn't predict. Hannah noticed last. She asked about the bills one night. I think the insurance lapsed. Did you forget the autopay? I slid the spreadsheet across the table. She opened it. Read for 10 seconds. Closed it. Said nothing. I stared at her. Not with anger. With disappointment so deep it felt like drowning. You knew what they thought of me, I said. And you let them say it. She didn't deny it. Her silence was the loudest thing in the house. That's when I filed for divorce. No shouting. No ultimatum. I just went to a lawyer and started the paperwork. Offered her the house. Took my savings. Signed myself out of the nightmare. Before I left, I printed out a folder. Every receipt. Every transfer. Every favor. Everything. On the front page I wrote, "You didn't respect me. Respect the math." Then I left it on the kitchen table and walked out the front door. The next time they called me, it wasn't to apologize. It was to panic. Hannah called first. I can't make the mortgage. Can we talk? Alex followed with a text. You ruined everything. I replied, no, I just stopped paying to be nobody. And just like that, the life they stood on started to buckle. They had chosen Trevor, the fun dad, the man who never said no because he was never there long enough to say yes. They chose the man who gave them nothing over the one who gave them everything. And now they would pay for that choice. Because when you burn a bridge, you don't get to complain about the swim. The divorce was quiet. Quieter than I expected. No yelling. No guilt-soaked pleas. No slammed doors. Just a lawyer's office, fluorescent lights, and the scent of stale coffee. Hannah sat across from me with her hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a bus. Not the dissolution of a marriage. We didn't argue about who got what. I gave her the house. Full stop. No haggling, no conditions. She blinked when she heard that. You're just giving it to me? I nodded. In exchange for everything else. My savings. My pension. My peace. I wanted out. Clean. No strings. No legal tethers to the life I was cutting off. And most importantly, I didn't want to be on the hook when the walls I'd held up for a decade finally started crumbling. Hannah signed. Slowly. I don't think she believed I'd really walk until I did. Before I left for good, I walked through each room. One last pass. Not for sentiment. For clarity. To see the shell I'd carried like a second skin. Sophie's old room. Still half-decorated from middle school, the posters curling at the edges. Alex's desk in the guest room covered in cords, cans, dust. The kitchen table I built with my own hands. The dents from a dropped skillet. The scratch from Alex slamming his backpack down. The chair I used to sit in when I paid the bills. Chair I wouldn't need anymore. I left the folder on that table. The one with the receipts, the balances, the printouts. It wasn't just a record. It was a gravestone. On the front page I wrote, you didn't respect me. Respect the math. Then I left the key in the mailbox and walked away. 3 weeks later, she called. Her voice was tight, brittle. I can't make the mortgage this month. Can we talk? I was in my apartment, small, clean, mine. I looked out the window at nothing in particular and said calmly, you can talk, but I'm not paying your bills. A pause. Then, you lived here too. Not anymore. Click. She didn't call again for a while. The house sold 3 months later. I checked the listing out of morbid curiosity. It sat on the market too long. The paint was peeling. The lawn had died. I guess they couldn't afford upkeep. Or didn't care to try. It sold for $180,000 less than I paid. A loss that would have gutted me once. But now it just confirmed what I'd always known. They didn't know how to maintain anything they didn't build. Hannah and the kids moved into a rental on the edge of town. Cramped. No yard. No porch swing. No space for the furniture I'd built. Alex crashed on the couch. Sophie took the smallest bedroom. No one posted smiling pictures of that move. Then came the real calls. Not from Hannah. From the kids. Alex texted, you ruined everything. I stared at it for a minute before replying. No, I just stopped funding the illusion. That was the first crack in his anger. The second came 2 weeks later, in the form of a voicemail I didn't answer. His voice was flat. No fury this time, just confusion. How are we supposed to keep going like this? That's when I realized. He thought the money was endless. That it flowed from me like water from a faucet. That he could turn it off with disrespect and expect it to keep pouring. He never understood that I wasn't rich. I was exhausted. Sophie reached out next. An email. Unexpected. Subject. I didn't mean it. Her words were short, clumsy, but real. I told you that you weren't our dad because I wanted to hurt you. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I didn't realize you were the only adult in the house. I read that line 3 times. Then once more. It didn't make me feel better. It just made the silence feel sharper. Because she was right. I was the only adult. And the moment I stopped playing that role, the structure collapsed. I replied simply, If you want to talk like adults, I'm open. But respect is the baseline now, not the reward. She didn't write back right away, but she didn't lash out either. That meant more to me than anything Alex had said in years. I heard from mutuals that Trevor still popped in. Less often now. Apparently, even the photo ops had started to feel like too much work. He didn't pay for anything, of course. Just showed up with gifts that looked expensive and disappeared before the wrapping paper hit the floor. He wasn't a parent. He was a magician. His best trick. Vanishing when responsibility entered the room. And yet, that was the man they'd chosen to elevate. The man whose name meant more than my presence. When Alex's student loans came due, he called me in a panic. Left a voicemail I didn't return. I listened to it twice. He sounded stunned. As if debt were some kind of betrayal. I wanted to laugh. You thought the world would carry you like I did? The silence between us grew. Not angry now. Just empty. For months after I left, I ran into Hannah at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow. Like the world had finally leaned on her the way it leaned on me for over a decade. We stood by the freezer aisle, pretending to be people who once loved each other. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she said. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. That's why I did. She swallowed. They're lost without you. They were lost with me, I said. You just didn't notice. She looked down at the floor. Alex. He's not himself. I think he's spiraling. He's exactly himself, I said. This is who he always was. You just didn't see it until the money dried up. We didn't say goodbye. I kept waiting for guilt to show up, for the regret to pull me under. But it never came. What came instead was quiet. Simple, blessed quiet. I didn't have to tiptoe around slammed doors. I didn't have to stretch my checkbook like a magician's trick. I didn't have to listen to the sound of my own effort being ignored. I slept better in that one-bedroom apartment than I had in a decade. Some nights, I'd remember the dinner table. How I used to sit there, paying bills while Alex streamed loud videos upstairs and Sophie scrolled past me without a word. Hannah on her phone, nodding along as I talked about the water heater or the car insurance or the upcoming rent hike. And none of them looked up. Now I ate alone. And I remembered to look at my own face in the mirror, to ask myself what I needed. And slowly, piece by piece, I realized something. I didn't leave a family. I left a transaction. A lopsided deal where I gave everything and got dismissed in return. And when the payments stopped, the deal ended. And all that was left was silence. Not mourning. Not anger. Just quiet truth. There was no final confrontation. No scene. No hug at the door. No realization that made it all click into place. Just distance. Just absence. And for once, I let it stay that way. Because the only wake-up call they ever responded to was the silence of a man who finally stopped speaking. I live alone now. One bedroom. Second floor walk-up. Walls bare. Floors clean. No framed photos of kids who called someone else dad. No dents in the table from school books I paid for. No evidence of a life I used to fund. Just peace. The first few weeks felt strange. Like walking out of a cave. I didn't realize how much noise I'd carried in my bones. Every day now starts with quiet. Real quiet. Not the kind where people seethe in separate rooms, but the kind that gives you back your name. I go to work. Come home. Cook for myself. Steak if I want. A sandwich if I don't. No compromises. No, what do the kids want? No one pushing a half-eaten plate away with a grunt. Just me. 8 months after the divorce, I met someone. Lindsay. No kids. No chaos. No expectations that I inherit someone else's mess and call it love. We split everything down the middle, bills, groceries, even decisions. She doesn't need saving. And she doesn't ask me to carry her world. I told her everything. From the start. About Alex, Sophie, Trevor. About how I tried to be a father and ended up being an ATM with a heartbeat. She didn't flinch. She just said, "You were never the problem." Sometimes late at night I wonder if I miss them. Not the real versions. The ones who drained me. The ones who saw my sacrifices as background noise. But the idea of them, the fantasy I built while breaking my back to keep them afloat. I missed the version of Alex who smiled when I taught him to ride a bike. I miss Sophie falling asleep in the back seat after ballet class. I miss believing that effort could fix everything. But I don't miss being ignored. I don't miss the contempt, the cold shoulders, the silence after years of giving. They wanted a dad who threw parties, not one who paid the bills. They wanted Trevor. Fun, fleeting, fictional. And when I stopped paying, it all collapsed. Turns out respect isn't optional. It's the price of admission. And I'd been letting them in for free. So here's what I've learned. If someone calls you a nobody, stop funding their everything. Because love without respect isn't love. It's labor. And I'm done working for free. So now I ask you, was I cruel to stop paying? Or were they cruel to keep taking? What would you have done?